There's been a lot of talk over the past few months about the new wave of politicians making their ways into cities, towns, districts across the U.S. 28-year-old self-described democratic socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the poster child of the movement in June when she beat powerful 10-term incumbent Congressman Joe Crowley in the New York primary. Closer to home, we have Boston City Councilor Ayanna Pressley vying to unseat 10-term Congressman Michael Capuano, that's the 7th District, and Boston City Councilor Josh Zakim going up against 6th-term incumbent Secretary of State Bill Galvin. They're certainly not the only members of the next generation saying it's time for a political turnover, but while some are treating this as a relatively new phenomenon, is it really? What about that other political newcomer in recent years, like the guy who asked these questions when he first announced his presidential run?
How stupid are our leaders? How stupid are these politicians to allow this to happen? How stupid are they?
So is that the beginning, or are we making much ado about not much overall? Joining me to discuss our former chair of the Mass GOP, Jennifer Nassour. She's now the COO of Reflect Us. Did I say that right?
You did.
A bipartisan, female-focused political organization aiming to shift the electoral culture. Good to see you. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Along with former state senator, candidate for governor Warren Tolman. Good to see you.
Nice.
And Boston Globe Ideas editor, Dante Ramos. It's good to see you, Dante, too.
Great to be
Your
here.
colleague, Joan Vanocchi, wrote a piece yesterday after the Maura Healey endorsement of Ayanna Pressley saying, quote, the old guard finally started to crack. Is it cracking? When we look back on this election cycle, is out with the old, particularly white men, even if credentialed, and in with the new, particularly women and women of color? Is that how this is going to be seen?
I think the dynamics are a little bit different between the two parties, but on the Democratic side, you see a lot of pent-up people who are, qualified people who've run for office, who've been perhaps at the city level for a while, and don't really have anywhere to go. And so I think it's only natural that they, that they look for higher office. And it seems as though, the Trump factor, maybe there's a heightened sense of urgency. So people, if you're Ayanna Pressley, if you're Josh Zakim, you think, clearly the old Democratic establishment didn't stop the things that I want to stop in the world, so why not take a flyer on it?
Are you seeing this too? Maybe not so much on the Republican side, we'll get to that, but are you seeing what he sees on the Democratic side?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I see it a lot with women as well. So what's happening right now is there are 519,000 seats that are in the United States. You have a lot of women.
There are?
Yeah, between every level of office,
Okay.
right? And so you have women who are running for office, and they want to run, but people are teaching them, okay, go run, but they're not being followed up. They're not getting the backing. And so I think one of the great things is everyone has this energy, but where is the energy? Are you able to take that? Is Josh Zakim, who's a Boston City Councilor, able to take the energy that he has and the experience that he brings from the Boston City Council and make that relevant to people in Pittsfield? Will they understand that it's a Boston Democrat who's on the City Council who's trying to now take that spot?
I want to get to that. I just realized as I'm sitting here, are you an example of this? You were sort of the establishment politician running for Attorney General, and this new kid on the block, Maura Healey, beat you in the primary. Was this the first case of what we're talking about in Massachusetts?
I don't think it was the first case. I think that
a case of this?
Maura ran a great campaign, and she's doing a terrific job.
Did you run a crappy campaign?
No, but so I look at it and I say, look, I was cast as an establishment politician,
right,
even though I had been a legislator who was one of the most anti-establishment legislators. That didn't matter. It was where the casting was set, and that's fine.
So the answer is sort of yes to my question.
So in some respects, yes, but I wasn't the first, nor will I be the last. And certainly part of this is, to go back to Jennifer's point, is some rebalancing that, that women constitute roughly a slight majority of the population. They should have some semblance of relative balance.
We talked about Zakim and Pressley here as the best local examples as the moment. At least my reckoning of this is, in one race, there's a candidate, Ayanna Pressley, that really isn't saying I'm that much different, even though she's trying to now, from the incumbent. In the other race, Zakim is saying I'm dramatically different from the incumbent. He's got a lot of bad ideas. I have a lot of good ideas. So is the message of the Pressley race, if you agree with my assessment, that experience and long service has essentially become a liability in 2018? Is that not a fair statement?
I don't know that she's saying that experience is exactly a liability. I don't think she has said this explicitly, but the undercurrent of that campaign is generational change. And there are, in this state and throughout the Democratic Party, there are a lot of boomer-era Democrats who have dominated the party for a long time. And I think other people are just getting a little impatient sitting around.
Do you think we're overestimating this whole... I'm going to show you a poll the Washington Post collected in a few minutes. This is what a lot of us are, well, all of us are talking about right now. But take a look at this poll, which I thought was really interesting, again, from the Washington Post. It looked at 18 to 29-year-old voters, and it looked at them before Parkland, which theoretically was going to inspire all these young voters that come out, and these are registered voters, before Parkland and most recently in April. As you see, even in places like Florida, exactly the same numbers. These other 7 battleground states, almost the exact same numbers. Are we overestimating this wave of new generation people by focusing on an individual or two? You're nodding in agreement.
Yeah,
yes?
Absolutely. I mean, historically, that age group does not vote. And so they just, it takes a lot to get them out. It takes a lot for them to get the fire in their belly. Unfortunately, incidents do not cause a big shift in the momentum of the electoral voting
So how
patterns.
did Ocasio-Cortez crush this long-term
Crowley
incumbent?
did nothing, did absolutely nothing. He didn't live in the district.
So you think that's an aberrational situation more than
100%.
a lot of her supporters would like us to believe?
Yeah, I think in Mike Capuano's case, you have one of the most liberal members of Congress who's been working his district pretty hard. I was a constituent at one point. He dropped my part of the district, but he's been hustling for many years. So I think it's difficult for her to make the case that he isn't delivering or isn't voting the right way. So she has to look to other things. I also think when you look at the demographic issue, I think a lot of people look at who's on the ballot, and if they don't know the candidates, they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to give the female an opportunity here.
Do you think we're making too much of this whole
I think we're conflating a couple of different things. I mean,
they?
It's true that in midterm elections that young voters don't turn out, and I think if if Zachem or Presley want to win, they can't expect it to be on the backs of 25-year-old voters because those people tend not to turn out. They need to convince other people within their party that they're the breath of fresh air and that the longtime incumbents are not doing the job. I think that's a little bit different. The issue with Presley and Zachem is that you have politicians in their 30s and their 40s who are impatient and looking to make a move.
Can we talk about another politician? I think he's in his 30s. He may be in his young 40s, who in Massachusetts may have started this as well. Here's Seth Moulton in New Hampshire this past weekend. Listen up.
This is bigger than one person. What we need is a new generation of leadership to be honest about the problems that we face. We can continue to have these narrow and divisive politics with our current leaders, or we can find leaders who are going to really bring us together.
Obviously, that was not New Hampshire, it was CNN, but he said the same things that this is this New Hampshire. Does that kind of message spell the end of Nancy Pelosi? Talk about the old guard. I don't mean that as a pun, but the old guard in Congress. Is that what we're going to see as a result of this wave-like thing we're talking about?
I'm not sure if it's enough to topple Nancy Pelosi, who I think has had pretty good control over her caucus, but that is the main argument against her leadership.
One of the weird things is we discussed a lot, all of us discussed a lot after Donald Trump was elected, whether or not what happened was unique to Donald Trump or if it had trickle-down effect. And my staff and I were talking today, and that's why I said this in the open. In many ways, this newcomer to politics things was not started by Ocasio-Cortez or Seth Moulton. It may have been started by Donald Trump. If you take away his politics and look at how he approached Hillary Clinton, she's been in government since she was in diapers kind of thing, crooked Hillary. Trump did start this whole thing, did he not?
There's no question. He attacked the career politicians, and he talked about being a businessman and being able to get the deals done. I'm going to bring a business mentality to the White House. It hasn't worked out too well, in my opinion, but that's a debate for another day.
But the interesting thing now, if that is true, it has trickled down, maybe unintentionally, to Democrats as we talk, but it doesn't appear to be trickling down to Republicans. I read this morning that roughly a quarter of the Republican women in the House have retired. So the job of people like you is to make sure those seats are not lost. The job is not to bring newcomers in to oust long-term incumbents at this stage.
No, well, I think it's kind of twofold. I mean, you see people like Elise Stefanik, who is a congresswoman from upstate New York, who is also in charge of recruiting for the NRCC. And she's been out there really hustling and working.
National Republican Congressional Committee.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And trying to get new people coming into office and backfill some of those seats. So, I mean, I think you definitely have a balance of what's going on. Clearly, I mean, look, Republican women are completely underrepresented as far as being in electoral office. The national average is about 19%. Republican women are even less. So, I mean, we have a long way to go. But I mean, it's interesting to look at this because I use Ayanna Pressley and Capuano as a great example around the country of a Democrat going against Democrat with similar policies. And what's the distinction? Younger, female, and a minority. And is that going to be the secret sauce? And it should be, we'll be seeing soon.
Is it the secret sauce? I mean, is it unfair to characterize that race that way?
I think if Ayanna Pressley wants to prevail, she needs to articulate more of a difference between her than what Jennifer was just describing, certainly. And I think she has struggled somewhat to do so. I mean, I think if you look at the things she's done on the Boston City Council, the issue mix is different from the things that Capuano has done on Capitol Hill, and you could argue that there are some generational differences in there. I don't know at this point if she's been all that successful at drawing distinctions.
We got to end it there. I'm sure we'll continue in days ahead. Jennifer, it's nice to see you. Warren, it's been a long time.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much. Dante, as always.
Thank you
for your time.